Evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Drunk Agile. We're finally, I think, getting back to normal. This is kind of our back to a quote unquote normal episode for Drunk Agile.
You're normal.
Yeah, no more, guests. I don't know. I don't even know what the word is.
Not that we don't love our guests. We love our guests.
We love them. We love them. But and we're actually drinking tonight, so we should probably start.
Yeah, that's the
okay. What do you got there? You went to church up the place. She's the star of the show, Nisha. Yeah. She was in, she had a bone earlier. I don't know.
Yeah, she's a little more active, I think. Oh, their eyes open.
Hi, Nisha. So yeah, start a show. Welcome back, Nisha. Prateek, what do you?
So I have the Blantons. Today is a Blantons night. Got my old fashioned with Blantons. Yeah, I still have enough of this to kind of last this show at least. Yeah.
I got the. I brought out the Glen Rothis. I can't remember if I've used this one before on the episode. So frequent watchers of the show, you're gonna have to go back and tell me. I think I've done this one before. It's 20-year-old Glen Rothis, 49% bourbon barrel. I like it a lot, but it's just got a hint of peat to it that just really kind of puts me off. So it prevents me from going all in on it, but it's better than most. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
All right. I'll introduce the topic if that's okay. So then you can
go for it.
You can do most of the talking. So we talk a lot on this show, and Agile frameworks in general talk a lot about the idea of done. We're always talking about, hey, when will it be done? That that focus on the done part of the equation seems to be paramount in most Agile methodologies or approaches or things like that. But if you've listened carefully to the shows that we've done over the past, you will hear from us that it's not necessarily, while done is important, obviously done in the hands of our customer is important. That's a very important thing. That's probably not the most important thing from a predictability perspective. That's probably not the most important thing. A much more important thing, I think we would argue, I'm going to put words in your mouth, Prateek, is this idea of beginning. When should it begin? So let's talk about things like, Prateek, can you forecast when something will begin? Maybe we start there, and then we can talk about other things like what are some considerations that you should take into account, when talking about beginning work and things like that. But let's first things first. Can you forecast when something will begin?
Yeah, I wish I had a short answer. I was going to say the short answer is, but there isn't a short answer here. You could forecast. You'll probably be wrong in most cases. But you can kind of go, hey, if this is sequenced to be the third thing to start, I'm working on thing one right now. When do I finish two things so that this thing can start? You could potentially do that. There are multiple problems with that you have to consider before you can even attempt to do that.
Well, let's talk through those multitude of problems, because I think that's ultimately, I think what this show is going to be about is, we were talking about Gantt charts briefly before the show, but what are some things that make it difficult for us to, before we can say this is the third item on our list, so we know for sure we're going to get item 1 done at this point, we're going to get item 2 done at this point, which means we can start item 3 at this point. What are some problems with that thinking? Why can't I do that?
So let's anchor back to the thing that we always talk about, which is probabilistic thinking. Item 1 getting done at this point, well, we don't know. There's a probability that it gets done at that point or before. Even if you're forecasting with let's say an 80% probability, hey, it'll be done by this date. Item 1 getting done by this date, and then item 2 following, getting done with 80%, you're already down to 68%. And then if you keep going.
Hey, you lost me. You started doing math and you lost me. Yeah.
Probably because I even did that wrong.
Probably. Anyway. I'm not gonna check it.
Yeah, it's actually 64%. But anyway, so it's already at 64, and then every item that you add on top of that, it keeps lowering it further and further. After 3 items, you're almost down to 50% chance of being right. So forecasting the start date of the 3rd item or the 4th item based on the end dates of the previous items when you're thinking probabilistically is a compounding problem.
Yeah. But let's even explore some of the assumptions, the implicit assumptions that you are making there. I think you are making, and you are making them on purpose, which is, again, part of the reason why we're talking about this is, number one, we kind of assumed in that scenario that we're working on items in order, in exact order, right? That we're working on item number 1, and then we're working on item number 2. That's a terrible assumption just in and of itself, right? Right there, you should exit the building, because that almost never happens. Well, let's come back to that maybe in a second. But then number 2, we're talking about, well, we're guaranteed that item 1 will finish before item 2 finishes, and that so then we'll finish item 1, then we'll finish item 2, and then we'll start item 3. Both of those things are inherently incorrect. Well, why?
Well, the first one, it's assuming we're living in the perfect world where everyone acts completely rationally. Although I don't know if that would be a perfect world.
Take a drink.
Assuming perfectly rational decisions being made at all points, you can guarantee that if it's 1, 2, and 3, you will go in that order. Now, that's actually, there's a second assumption there too, which I'll get to. That we have discovered working with multiple teams is not always true. Even though we can say this is the priority order, many a time item number 13 starts before items number 4, 5, and 6. The reason we're laughing is because that literally was the first time we saw that happening, and we were amazed that that was happening. But the second,
why didn't you get item number 1 done? Oh, we were working on item number 13. Okay.
Even in the perfectly rational world, though, so this one is the assumption of rationality. The second is the assumption that nothing else is going to show up while you're working through this. That will be higher priority than number 3. So just in the question of that sequencing, there are 2 huge assumptions, which are, 1, we're going to be perfectly rational in decision making, and 2, nothing else is going to show up to change that decision making. Yeah.
And let me pile on top of that, because a lot of people, I think a lot of people are under the misconception. I think we've addressed this myth on this show, by the way. A lot of people are under the misconception that to drive predictability in your process, you have to follow a very strict FIFO queuing order, first in, first out queuing order. And that's simply not true. If you're working on, say, 5 things at a time, you don't have to necessarily, from a predictability perspective, you don't necessarily have to wait for 1 to finish before 2 can finish, before 3 can finish, before 4 can finish. That's really not how it works. So in the situation where you're working, so let's take this specific example where we've got items 1, 2, and 3. Well, there's a pretty high probability that you're going to be working on items 1, 2, and 3, all at the same time. So kind of forecasting when those, when those things will start, so that we can forecast when those things are finished, becomes problematic, because that's not necessarily the world that we're working in.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is a take a drink thing, but I think we've talked ad nauseum about limiting WIP, and this is one effect of not limiting WIP. If you keep adding WIP, you will have multiple of these things in progress at any given point of time. And there is absolutely no guarantee that you'll have any semblance of order in which they finish.
Well, I think that's a great segue, I think, into the, not that all of this has been the meat of this episode, but I think what you're talking about now is really the meat of what we want to get across is, instead of trying to forecast exactly when something should start, what's potentially a better pattern? What's potentially a better approach to figuring out when something should start?
I don't know if I have a great answer to it, but I do have, and you might have better answers to this than I do, but I do have some basic rules that we should be thinking about on day-to-day basis on, are we ready to start something or should we start something? First of which we already, this is the segue of WIP. If there is space available to start something, that's signal number one. Okay, we're good to start something. That's signal number one. But that's not enough. We need to make sure that, as we were talking about earlier, the thing that we're about to start is the highest priority thing. We might have initially, 2 months ago, thought that this particular thing was the highest priority, but in the meantime, something else might have shown up. So there's WIP available. The next item to start is the highest priority item. The item that we start, we actually intend on not just starting it, but actually finishing it all the way through. And probably the last one, at least for me, is it has met some sort of definition of begin, I guess, to kind of mirror the definition of done, that it's in a shape that we can actually start work on it. So
yeah, so I mean the idea of just in time, and we always come back to just in time, and I think both of you and I err on the side of just in time, a little bit, maybe to a fault, potentially to a fault. I will admit that. But that's an idea of using work in progress, somebody work in progress as a signal. I agree, is huge. Instead of worrying so much about when exactly is this particular item going to start, let's make sure that our process is in a state that it has capacity to even pull something in. To your second point, I agree, but I would tweak the language, because you're saying, hey, is this the highest priority thing? I want to make sure, I think you're saying this, but we can maybe debate this, but I think you're saying this is, I think what you're saying is, at the time when we have that signal that we have capacity to pull something in, is everything that we know about the item we're about to start, or does everything we know about the item we're about to start, does that make it the highest priority? It might not necessarily be the highest item on your backlog, but it's the highest priority based on current business environment, based on capacity, based on whatever's going on in our context. Just whatever. I think I assume that's what you really mean, right?
Yeah, the way I like to, and I'll borrow from the dawn on this one. The way I like to think about sequencing is more important than priority. So yeah, is this item the right thing to be sequenced next?
Right. And to me, that's the more important. So I say this a lot. I don't know that I really understand what I'm talking about, and I'm not sure that it's entirely true.
You don't.
But I say this a lot in my classes, that spending a lot of time ordering a backlog, and forgive me, Scrum people out there, but spending a lot of time ordering your backlog from a lean perspective is waste, because we don't know at the time we're ordering is almost never the same time as when we're deciding to pull stuff in. And so you should be allowed, when you pull something in, to be able to deviate from whatever that order is. And I would argue you should, as much as possible, delay that decision on ordering. Now, my good friend Steve Porter, I think it was Steve Porter who said this, maybe it was Ryan Ripley, forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, mentions that the Scrum guy is actually not specific about when that ordering should happen. So theoretically, doing that ordering just in time is still scrummy. which is okay. But the point, to belabor the point, don't necessarily assume because you have your backlog 1, 2, 3, 4 that the highest priority is always that next highest item on your backlog. It may not be. That was it. That was
it. What? Sorry, I was just like waiting for another 5 minutes here.
No, I want to get to another drink. So you talk.
Yeah. So we talked about WIP being available. We talked about sequencing. The third thing for me is make sure that if we're going to start this thing, we're actually going to finish this, because the easiest way to blow up your predictability, blow up your system, is to continuously keep starting things that you don't intend to finish.
I mean, we say that all the time because to make it look like we're making progress, to make it look like we're taking our customer requests seriously, whatever the charade is that we're playing, that's the biggest reason why I think people pull work in. And you're right. That's kind of the death knell of your process is, okay, yeah, we look busy and we want to look like we're working on this thing. But
yeah.
so we started, but are we really going to finish? Do we really have an intention of finishing it? I think that's a huge point.
Yeah, we have this feature with 8 stories, but these 1 or 2 are small. We can just get them through, and then when we have time, we'll do the other 6.
Or I don't know if we can say, well, looks like our team's going to have some capacity on the side here, so let's start this lower priority feature, and I promise, they'll just work on it when they have some spare capacity. Right? I don't know if we should be talking about that or not, but
yeah, but I do understand the temptation. I do understand the temptation of saying, let's make some progress. Why not? But the why not, the answer to the why not is we should never be starting things we don't intend to finish.
So if we could sum up the important takeaways from this episode, this idea of understanding when items should start is probably more important than understanding when they will finish from a predictability perspective. I mean, that statement in and of itself, I think probably seems weird to people, but it's true. The biggest thing that you can do to kind of kill yourself from a predictability standpoint is not get that start point right. So if we can sum up kind of the big takeaways from this, what are some of the things that we would say?
To me, there are essentially 4 rules we've talked about of when something should start. There is, make sure there's WIP to start this, WIP available. Make sure that if we're starting this, we can actually finish this. Make sure this is the right item in terms of priority and sequencing to start. And make sure you have some sort of definition of begin, which this item has fulfilled before we actually start it. Yeah.
So kind of, I know all of you who are listening, I know a lot of you have been taught about this idea of, the importance of prioritization, and we won't even talk about how SAFe handles this. We won't even go there. But I know a lot of you have had this drilled into your head, how important it is to prioritize and how important it is to work in a prioritized order. What we're asking you to do is not necessarily dump all of that, but probably dump all of that. Just kind of embrace this idea of, we don't know what the right order is in the future. If we can move to more of a just-in-time prioritization, a just-in-time commitment, if you will, that opens up all kinds of more flexibility for us. Dare I say, more agility for us, to be able to, only when the process signals that we have capacity to work, consider these 4 rules that you're talking about, and kind of go from there. And sequencing and ordering and prioritization will kind of take care of itself from that perspective. I know that kind of sounds like the last word, but I feel like I want to give you the last word. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
And then you talked over it, and then so whatever.
Is there anything else you want to say?
For people who are just listening and not watching, Nisha's moved at least twice in this episode. So it's an exciting episode for everyone.
We have a full-fledged Nisha alert. This is DEFCON 2. Anything else to add then, or should we just wrap it up?
I think we wrap it up. I might pour myself another drink though, but yeah.
Yeah, this, I don't know. I'm not sure how concrete a lot of the stuff that we've talked about sounds. I hope you take something away from this. If you have any questions, as always, we love to hear from you, because we do love to interject the episodes where we're answering our listeners' questions as they ask us. So please feel free to drop us a line, leave a comment, whatever. We'll be looking for that. So until we get that, and until next time, keep on drinking, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody.